welcome Greg Baynton.
Thanks, Clarice, for that kind introduction. And it's a pleasure to be here. A fabulous dinner. I enjoyed it. Thank you. And we're ready to go. So you'll see our logo on these slides. You'll also see another company's logo, Reed Construction Data. They're owned by a company called Reed Elsevier, which is based in the UK, and they're the biggest business-to-business publisher in the world. And Vika happens to enjoy a strategic alliance with them, which has been very beneficial to our members. And they have a team of analysts and economists that I couldn't even start to match. So I've told them a lot of the data you're going to see here is from Reed and our relationship with them, and supplemented by some of my own information. So I just wanted to sort of orient you in terms of that. There's lots of signs out in the marketplace that really don't make a lot of sense and are really kind of confusing to all of us these days. And in our association, some unusual things have been happening. We've had more projects in our Bid Central plan room for the industry to bid on than we have in the last 5 years, even pre-2008, which is another confusing sign. In July and August, which is a traditionally slower time for the industry in terms of bidding work, we had the record number of projects. We had about 50 projects a week available to members to bid through the month of August, which put off a lot of holidays for our members and had them kind of disgruntled, but at the same time, it was unprecedented. The fall leading up to Christmas is usually an incredibly busy time with the Christmas rush. And on about September 15th, it was like somebody hit a light switch and everything just dried up, and it doesn't make sense. It's hard to make sense of. So those are many of the signs our members and I see in doing our work. And it leaves us looking at the world like this. We don't know whether to go back, we don't know whether to go forward, turn left, turn right. And for a lot of our members right now, it's so confusing it almost creates a state of paralysis, which has its own risks, which I'm sure you understand. Clarice has asked me to talk about the commercial and institutional sectors. There's actually 3 sectors as illustrated in this slide. I'm sure they make sense to all of you. The non-residential sector is made up of the commercial, industrial, and institutional sector, and I'm going to talk about 2 of them because, quite frankly, there isn't a lot of industrial on Vancouver Island or in the Comox Valley, but it's something we cannot overlook because there's a ton of industrial work going on in other places in British Columbia, which is going to create some real challenges for us on the island and in the Comox Valley in terms of workforce. So I'm going to start with the commercial starts. This is in terms of millions of square feet. I appreciate that's a bit of a tough benchmark for you to kind of get your head around. And this is for Canada. And it's the top 6 regions or areas in Canada. And you see that British Columbia made the mark. You'll see in some of the prior years, post-2008, it's dropped off. 2010, it's about 5.9 million square feet. And then this year, and this is kind of consistent with what I told you our experience has been, 2011, we had a little bit of a vacuum. It's kind of backed off in the commercial sector. Now, that's for British Columbia. That isn't necessarily true on Vancouver Island. And if you have an opportunity to drive up and down the island, which I do representing our membership, starting in Victoria, you've got the Uptown Mall. There's all kinds of commercial activity with malls, those kinds of things. You can go through Duncan per capita. Duncan's had an amazing amount of commercial activity in terms of malls, retail stores, and things like that. Nanaimo, very similar. I see the Woodgrove Center is probably undergoing about its 5th renovation in maybe 7 years. And when you come right back into the Comox Valley here, you know, you've seen Walmart, Costco, Thrifty's has just started, Home Depot not so long ago. And those companies are not investing in those stores for the business they have today. They're investing for the future. So they're anticipating a growth, which is basically the Comox Valley doubling. And those businesses don't come to town after that happens. They come before it does. So the Comox Valley Valley has hit a critical mass that's attracted those kind of companies to invest in that level of commercial activity going forward, and that's a tremendously positive indicator for the Comox Valley. Another part of the commercial sector is obviously office building space. You know, when you start getting down to around 9% vacancies, it makes that area of the market very viable. You'll see in 2009, it dropped off post-2008. I'm sure that doesn't need a lot of explaining, but you can see the trend, and I wouldn't be too concerned about the numbers here. Just look at the bars. And the outlook going forward for commercial starts in Canada are very good. And it's true in Victoria and up and down the island. We're seeing lots of demand for commercial starts. There's a confidence in the marketplace, and all of the fundamentals in Canada are good. That does not mean we're not susceptible to other world events and things that are beyond our control. Greek banks, Italian banks, you name them. We are susceptible to that. And any kind of major catastrophe that could happen there will have an impact on these numbers. But even taking all of that into account, those risks, the forecast going out is quite encouraging in terms of building starts in office buildings. The hotel motel sector, same thing. Again, dropped off 2009. 2011 actually happens to be even lower than it was 2009. But you can see confidence and reinvestment in that sector as well. And right here in the Comox Valley, I'm tonight, thanks to Clarice, staying in a nice hotel, the Holiday Express. And you know, it's evidence of this data. It's what's going on, and you're going to see more of that. Retail and malls. You know, I've kind of touched on that a few moments ago about what we're seeing on the island in terms of places like Uptown Mall and up and down the island, and what you're seeing right here in the Comox Valley with stores like Costco, etc. Looking at the institutional, and I think this is really important to clarify this, all of the commercial activity we saw is all privately funded work. And, you know, we're fairly bullish going on forward in terms of that kind of investment. And we're kind of in a state of transition right now. And that's one of the reasons why you're seeing some weakness in 2011. The governments across Canada, post-2008, did a lot of infrastructure stimulus. So there was a tremendous amount of investment in schools. We have a new hospital in Victoria. There's one destined for this area in Campbell River, which I'm sure you've heard about. But government, due to a lot of red ink, is retracting now. And they've tried to create an environment and some confidence for the private sector to take over. So when we're looking at institutional starts, we're seeing some decline there, particularly right now. So again, publicly funded institutional square footage, it gives you a sense of how BC's ranking across the country. We're actually doing quite well. We're ahead of Manitoba and Saskatchewan, interestingly enough, and Saskatchewan's been red hot. Alberta's doing extremely well, and I'm sure Larry's going to touch on that. He's from Alberta. But overall, we're measuring up quite well, and despite the government retracting, and next year, post-election year, or actually an election year, not post-election, it's reasonable to expect we're going to see the government investing in some more construction, and it's very likely you might see the groundbreaking on a new hospital here. Medical building starts. 2010 was a huge year. Of course, that was the back end of the infrastructure stimulus. So that's when we sort of realized all those statistics. The falling off I referred to in 2011, and then reinvestment in 2012, and going out to 2013 is quite good. Education building starts. Really the same scenario there for as all of the other institutional government-funded projects. So I'm not going to go over that slide a lot in great detail. The Ministry of Education is continuing to invest in seismic upgradings of school. The demographics have changed quite a bit in terms of population. They're selling off some of the school sites, knocking old schools down, and starting to look at build some new ones. And in Victoria, we have 3 of those coming up. New non-res. So what I would draw your attention to there is kind of the percentages going across the bottom there. This is looking at non-res as a whole. So the whole ICI sector dropped off 2.6% in 2009. A lot of infrastructure investment in 2010 went up to 13.4. And as that infrastructure investment waned off in March of last year, we've actually declined about 1.9%. But what's really interesting when you look at the amount of investment going forward into 2012 and beyond, we started with a 5% increase, and it ramps up quite strongly after that to a level of investment that we haven't actually seen for some time. So the non-res sector, we're quite confident in. What I put up here for you is a graph of all construction to kind of give you a sense of that. And again, I draw your attention to just these sort of percentage numbers across the bottom. Again, to post 2008 and 2009, the wheels fell off of everything. We're looking at a minus 12.7% growth. 2010's up, and 2011 still up 4% and is continuing to go up. And that's all in terms of investment dollars spent. So, and you'll notice British Columbia there in the shaded column in 2011. We're ranked 4th in Canada as far as a province goes with the level of investment in construction, and that includes everything. So we're doing extremely well. Ontario's right off the chart. Alberta's extremely strong. Quebec was very strong. That may change with a lot of the investigation around corruption in that province, but they're still very strong there as well. But BC's 4th position in Canada and doing very well. The other thing that's very interesting is Canada's ranked 9th in the world as far as construction activity and as a national builder, if you will. And over the next 10 years, we're going to move to position 4 in the world. That's how much work's going to be going on with people moving here for opportunities, lots of growth. And of course, with that growth comes some challenges. And one of them is our workforce. Neil Young's not so young anymore. He's a lot older. And we have fewer birthdays than we do deaths, which is creating some challenges. And aside from all of the economic threats or jeopardy in the marketplace, from our association's perspective, this is probably one of the single biggest threats on the horizon to us, is to be able to develop that workforce. This, some of you may have seen this before. I really like this slide. It was created by the Urban Futures Institute in 2001. And you'll notice 10 years ago, they absolutely nailed this in terms of 2012 is when that axis changes. So 10 years ago, this data supports exactly what I told you of what the current data is produced by Reed. And it's really where the challenges reside. And we're going to be competing with everybody. It isn't just the construction sector. We'll be competing with Alberta, other areas across the country and the world for a workforce that doesn't exist. We're going to have to develop an older workforce, which here in the Comox Valley, you have a very good opportunity to do. A lot of people retire here. They're healthy. They're drawn here because of the activities and the recreation are here. That usually means they're physically healthy and probably mentally healthy. And there's a tremendous resource. We're going to have to look at non-traditional sectors, certainly in the construction sector, when I say that. So women, First Nations, places like that. And for us, our challenge, I was in a planning session all day today, is for our industry, the construction sector, to become an employer of choice and not to just take people, but we want the best people. We really need those people. So some of the solutions we're looking at are better engaging the people who are already here, so that's the women, the First Nations, and the people that work for us now. Embrace them. The construction industry's been guilty of having, to a large extent in the past, the stigma of a very transitional workforce. We can't keep operating like that. We need to retain these people and develop them. So that goes right to that, which is develop strategies to retain your very best people. You really need to hold on to those people, develop their skill sets. The other thing is to broaden our physical and geographical reach in how you fill those positions. You're not going to fill them from the Comox Valley. You're going to have to hire people from other jurisdictions. And one of the areas that we're looking at is the immigrant community has always been very attractive to us, and traditionally we've looked to Europe, India, the Middle East, but we've got a neighbor who's nowhere near in the position we are, and that's the United States. And there's a lot of people there that speak the same language, to a large extent have the same values and a similar culture, and they're not going to be moving forward as readily as we are, as quickly. So we think the United States provides a real resource. And then lastly, as I say, becoming an employer of choice for the construction industry. And I'm just going to close on this. This is Darwin. It's not the strongest species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the ones that are most responsive to change. So we cannot afford to sit on our hands. These confusing signs we see out there, we need to evaluate the data, have the courage to make some kind of a move. Hopefully we're encouraging our memberships to move forward with courage and confidence, but you can't afford to be stagnant or stay still. You have to make a choice and make a decision. Thank you very much.